My stepbrother was running the family business into the ground. When I stepped in to help, he looked me in the eye and said, "You always think you're better than me. Let me show you how real business is done." 6 months later, no clients, no staff, nothing left. My father died when I was 6. Heart failure. It happened in 2 days. One moment we were watching cartoons, the next he said he didn't feel well. Then mom was screaming into the phone, "Please, just come, now," and then, silence. A kind of silence I hadn't heard before. After the funeral, our house sounded different. The furniture was the same, but the air felt thick, like it swallowed every noise. Mom didn't cry in front of me. She stayed composed, wiped her face when she thought I wasn't looking. I knew not to ask for much. I just did what I could, washed cups, tied my own shoes, remembered where she put her phone. We handed each other the days like a fragile thread, careful not to pull too hard. 2 years she lived like that, hollow but functioning. And I lived like that, too, breathing quieter so I wouldn't bother her. When I was 8, a man entered our life. Not suddenly, just appeared more and more. First as a visitor, then on our couch, then with a key in his hand. My mom started wearing different clothes, cooking dinners, not just food, laughing again. I watched her come back from wherever she'd disappeared to. And I was happy for her, honestly. I didn't feel jealous or scared. He seemed fine. Not fake. Just a man with calloused hands who didn't talk too much. He had a son, 2 years younger than me. We looked at each other like strangers who'd be sitting next to each other for a long flight. Not friends. Not enemies. Just there. A year later, they got married. We became a family. Not a perfect one, sometimes awkward, sometimes tense, but real. I got my own room, a birthday backpack. People asked me how school was. I soaked it in like water. My mom wore lipstick again. Life wasn't perfect, but it was better. My stepbrother was fine at first. Quiet, distant. He watched me play soccer, asked me to teach him stuff. I did. We argued sometimes, but it was normal. Then puberty hit and something changed. I was the good son. Not on purpose, I just grew up faster. I studied hard. Played sports. Got invited to things. Teachers liked me. A girl held my hand in 8th grade and wrote dumb little notes. He had none of that. People called him the boss's kid. They called me by name. He started looking at me differently. Not speaking much. Snapping at little things. I brushed it off, figured it would pass. It didn't. We both worked at my stepdad's small business. I hauled boxes, met clients, helped close shop. He cut corners, left early, napped in the back room. I stayed quiet. It was family. When I turned 18, I left for college. Got a job on the side. He stayed behind, couldn't get into school. Started working, for Dad, full-time. No one told me to feel guilty. But I did anyway. Like I abandoned something that wasn't mine to begin with. I never thought anyone would hate me just for keeping it steady. I graduated and got a job right away. Nothing fancy, but it felt good, steady hours, decent pay, my own desk. Then came the accident. Stepdad was hit by a drunk driver one night on his way home from work. Pelvis shattered, ribs crushed, lung collapse. ICU. Surgeries. Rehab. Mom called me, her voice thin and tired. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this alone. I didn't hesitate. I quit. Packed. Moved home. Not for the business, for her. She needed help, cooking, driving, answering calls, keeping sane. And while I was there, I started helping at the shop. Not running things. Just making sure the books weren't bleeding and orders still got packed. Customers needed to see a face they trusted. And the employees, most of them had been with my stepdad for over a decade, needed someone to show up. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just filling the gap. My stepbrother didn't say much when I came back. At first I thought he was relieved. Then I noticed the tension. He'd sigh when I answered a customer's question before him. Snap when I corrected an invoice. Call me perfect in that way people say it when they mean fuck you. But I ignored it. It wasn't about me. The business needed hands. Mom needed sleep. Stepdad needed months, maybe years, to walk again. I stayed out of the way. Worked, ate late, kept my head down. Meanwhile, he started pulling my stepdad aside more. Talking behind closed doors. And one day, I came in and found out the business had been legally signed over to him. Not temporarily. Permanently. Full transfer. I asked Mom if she knew. She just nodded and said, "He said you'd leave anyway." And he wasn't wrong. I didn't protest. It was their family. Their blood. I wasn't going to fight over papers. I stayed on, working under him. At least for a while. I didn't care about the title. But it didn't take long before things started falling apart. He wanted to modernize. Cut staff. Cut corners. Fire the older guys. Hire friends. I watched it happen like a slow wreck. People didn't yell. They came to me quietly. "Can you talk to him? Can you explain he's killing the shop?" I tried. I really did. I took him out for lunch. Sat across from him. Talked calmly. Offered ideas. He stared at me and said, "This isn't yours. You don't get to tell me what to do." I nodded. He added, "You've always wanted to be better. Go be better somewhere else." That night, he fired me. Sent an email. CC'd Mom. Said I was disruptive. I didn't fight. Didn't explain. Didn't even tell my stepdad. He was in physical therapy, trying to relearn stairs. I found another job the next week. Paid the bills. Came home. Cooked. Took care of the things no one noticed. The shop. I heard things. Staff leaving. Clients switching. And still, I said nothing. Until the calls started coming in, from the men I used to work with. "He's destroying everything. You need to talk to your dad." And I knew. The weight was about to fall. And no one was ready to catch it. The calls kept coming. Not angry, just tired. The old crew, the loyal ones, the guys who built that place brick by brick, they were watching it collapse from the inside. Orders lost. Deliveries late. Payroll missed. Clients not returning calls. And still, he smiled like he had it under control. Eventually, one of them, Sam, the oldest, went to see my stepdad. Told him straight. "Your son's gonna bury everything you built." I wasn't there for the conversation, but I heard what happened after. My stepdad called him in, his real son. They sat down, closed the office door, and tried to talk. I imagine it started calm. But knowing him, knowing the chip that had been growing on his shoulder since we were kids, I know it didn't stay that way. He accused my stepdad of never trusting him, of always favoring me. Said the workers were turning against him because I told them to. Said I poisoned the well. That I couldn't stand not being in charge. And then he said it. Loud enough, apparently, for the guys outside to hear. "You always acted like he was your real son. Maybe you should have left the business to him instead." After that, he fired the rest of the team. Every last one. Called them traitors. Said they were old, bitter, and replaceable. Brought in his own crew. Young. Cheap. Confused. The place started to rot fast. Systems failed. Clients backed out. Contracts dissolved. You could see it from the street, the dust on the windows, the burned out sign, the silence. And I watched it all happen from the outside. Never said a word. Never gloated. I'd come home, ask Mom if she needed groceries, drive her to appointments, fold towels. Pretend nothing was broken. She knew, though. She saw it in my face. She once asked, "Does it hurt?" And I said, "No. I'm just sorry it ended like this." That was the truth. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want the business. I just didn't want him to destroy something good just to prove he could. On my stepdad's birthday, some of the old crew stopped by. Nothing official, just a few beers, quiet music, and a table full of men who missed what used to be. I came too. Sat in the back. We shared stories. Laughed. And then Sam said, "Why don't we just start over?" Heads turned. Faces nodded. Someone said, "With him in charge this time." I thought they were joking. They weren't. And that was the moment it clicked. I never needed permission. I just needed a room where people weren't afraid of being seen. We didn't plan anything big. Just a new space, a fresh coat of paint, and the same crew who never needed perfect, only honest. The building wasn't impressive, but it felt right. We didn't hang banners or post online. We just opened the doors. And the clients came. Quietly at first. 1, then 2, then 10. They shook my hand and said, "We're glad you stayed in this." Some of them didn't even ask what happened to the old place. They knew. Everyone knew. My stepbrother sent messages. Angry ones. Said we were stealing. Said we were snakes. Said he'd sue. Then came the threats, vague, bitter, broken. I didn't respond. What was there to say? We weren't taking anything. We were just rebuilding what he buried. My stepdad showed up the second week. Walked in slow, still using a cane, but standing tall. He looked around. Nodded. Said, "Feels familiar." Then he pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget, asterisk, "You never asked for anything. You just showed up when no one else did. That's all I ever needed." Asterisk, my mom cried in the car on the way home. She didn't say why. She didn't have to. My stepbrother disappeared after that. Rumors said he moved, changed his number, maybe tried to start over somewhere else. I don't know. I don't hate him. I just don't follow his story anymore. Mine's here. The shop grew, not fast, but steady. We didn't make a fortune. We made room. Room for dignity. For second chances. For work done right. I still fold towels at home. I still drive mom around. Some nights I sit in the office alone and think about the day I got fired, and how I didn't fight. Because maybe, deep down, I knew it would lead here. A place that isn't built on names or bloodlines or control. Just trust. And work. And people who remember what it's like to be seen and still stay. That's all I ever wanted. Not ownership. Not revenge. Just something worth keeping alive. And this time, I'm not leaving. I grew up in a cold corner of Michigan, the kind of place where winters outlast everything, and your jacket's never warm enough no matter how thick. We lived in a rental with plastic on the windows and floors that creaked like they were warning you. I was the oldest of 4, which basically meant I was a third parent no one asked for. My dad was around but useless, the kind of man who sat on the porch with a beer and called it providing. My mom worked doubles at a nursing home. She'd come home with her scrubs smelling like bleach and sweat, drop her bag, and fall asleep still wearing her shoes. I learned early not to ask for anything unless it was on fire. By the time I was 10, I could make boxed mac and cheese without spilling. I knew where we kept the Tylenol, how to stretch one loaf of bread for 3 lunches, and how to lie to the attendant's office so my little brother didn't get written up. If you asked my parents what I was like back then, they'd probably say, bossy. Or, too grown for her own good. But I didn't feel grown. I just felt like someone had to hold it all up. And it sure wasn't gonna be them. On my 12th birthday, nobody remembered. I didn't cry or anything. I just waited until they went to bed, made myself a grilled cheese, and cut it into triangles like they used to when I was little. I made my own cake 2 years later, box mix, no frosting, and I washed the pan before anyone noticed. At 16, I got into community college early. Took night classes, worked weekends at the dollar store, and paid for my own phone. I remember overhearing my mom tell someone, "Yeah, Erin's always been independent." Like it was a compliment. Like it was a choice. When I graduated high school, I wore a thrifted dress and fixed my own hair in a gas station bathroom mirror. Nobody came. I walked across the stage and waved to no one. Later, my mom texted, "Congrats, no period." I sat on the curb and watched other kids take photos with families who remembered them. And I thought, maybe some people are just born invisible. Maybe I'm one of them. I got into a state school 2 hours away. Social work. It felt right, like maybe if I couldn't fix my own mess, I could help someone else clean up theirs. I shared a tiny apartment with 3 girls who all had throw pillows and parents who called to check in. I worked the night shift at a 24-hour diner, poured coffee for truckers who tipped in crumpled ones and told me I had a kind face. I was always tired. My roommates thought I was just introverted, but really, I was always calculating rent, gas, which grocery store had eggs cheaper that week. I sent money home when I could. Never much, but enough to keep the lights on. Mom never asked directly, but she'd say things like, "Your brother's shoes are falling apart," and I'd get the hint. I didn't go home much. Every time I did, it felt like stepping back into a house where I was the only one aging. Like everything was still stacked on my side of the scale. Then came the call. I was 21, folding napkins after a shift, when my mom rang me, which she never did. I answered, and all I heard was panic. "He's gone," she said. "Your dad's gone. And there's bills and, I don't know what to do. Your brother got in trouble, the cops came, and I can't." I didn't cry. I didn't say much. I just said, "I'll come." And I did. Dropped my classes. Quit my job. Packed a bag. Took the bus home. Nobody met me at the station. I walked the 2 miles to the house in shoes that were too thin for March. The house smelled like damp laundry and burnt coffee. I hugged my mom. She didn't say thank you. She just looked at me like, "Of course you came," and that's when it hit me. They all just expect me to catch it when things fall. No warning. No apology. Just, "You've done it before." I started working at the CVS near the freeway. Stocked shelves, rang people out. Babysat for our neighbor's kid on Saturdays. Cleaned an office building after hours. In between, I fixed things. Got my brother a court date. Got my sister new shoes. Made a chore chart that nobody followed. I told myself it was temporary. Just until we got back on our feet. But there's no such thing as we when you're the only one standing. A year in, I had it down to a science. Meal planning every Sunday. Grocery lists that hit every discount. I kept our power on, kept my siblings fed, kept my mom just barely above water. I didn't complain. I didn't even think about what I'd given up anymore. My friends from college texted sometimes, asked when I was coming back. I said, soon, but we all knew I wasn't. It's hard to go back to a life where someone asks how you're doing when you've built your whole identity around pretending you're fine. But for a little while, the house was quiet in a good way. My brother stopped getting in fights. My sister got her first A in math. My mom stopped forgetting her keys. I told myself maybe this was enough. Maybe I didn't need to finish school or live in a city or have something of my own. Maybe I could just keep being useful. Then he came back. My dad. With a duffel bag and a plastic bag full of groceries like that made him a provider again. My mom stood in the doorway like she didn't know how to block him or welcome him. She let him in. Just like that. I came home from my shift and found his shoes by the door. My room was now his office. My routines became overbearing. My help, too much. He started calling me bossy, like I was 13 again. He'd tell my brother, "Don't let her tell you what to do," when I asked him to do his homework. He'd joke that I was trying to be Mom Jr. I wasn't trying to be anyone. I was just holding what everyone else kept dropping. But the jokes chipped away at me. Worse than that, Mom let them stand. She stopped backing me up. Started saying things like, "He's trying," like that made everything okay. One night, I asked him to stop leaving the back door open. The heat bill had been through the roof. He laughed. Said, "You think this is your house now?" He didn't yell. Just said it low, calm, mean. "You pay a couple bills and suddenly you're in charge?" I looked at my mom. Nothing. She stirred her tea. Didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. That silence cracked something in me I didn't even know was still whole. I thought, oh. That's how it is. The next morning I packed a backpack. Just a few things. Didn't even take my charger. Left a note on the fridge. I tried. I didn't cry until the third night. Until I realized no one had texted. Not to ask where I was. Not to say sorry. Just silence. Like I'd been background noise, and now the room was quiet. I slept on a friend's couch for a while. Then found a room above someone's garage. Worked mornings at a bakery. Nights at a bookstore. Started saving again. Started breathing again. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. I wasn't waiting to be needed. I wasn't hoping to be thanked. I was just, still here. And somehow, that was enough. I didn't tell anyone where I'd moved. Not out of bitterness, I just didn't want anyone coming around out of guilt. A few weeks in, my sister showed up. I don't know how she found me. Maybe a friend told her, maybe she just guessed. But when I opened the door and saw her, none of that mattered. Hoodie, backpack, standing there like she was waiting to be told to leave. I didn't ask questions. Just opened the door and stepped aside. A week later, my brother texted, "You still have that old blanket I liked?" He came with nothing but headphones and a duffel. Said our dad was back to yelling, and Mom just shut her door now. "I'm tired," he said. Tired of waiting for someone to act like they care. We crammed into my tiny room above a garage. Shared takeout. Took turns with the hot water. But it was quiet. Safe. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody got left out. I picked up more shifts. We made it work. One day at the store, I got to talking with a woman. She was older, worked part-time, had a niece in foster care. I must have looked exhausted because she asked if everything was okay. I told her a little. Not much. She nodded and said, "I might know a place." 2 days later, she helped me find a small rental in a half-decent neighborhood, old place, creaky floors, but it had 2 bedrooms and sun in the morning. The landlord gave me a deal. Said, "People like you hold this world up. Least I can do." I almost cried signing the lease. It was the first time in my life I had a home that felt like mine. A few weeks in, I got a message from a woman named Kia. She said she worked at a local volunteer center and had been reading my blog. Said she liked my voice. Asked if I ever thought about working with teens. I met her for coffee. She didn't ask for a resume. Just asked what I needed to feel okay. I started helping at the center 2 nights a week. At first just organizing flyers, sweeping up, handing out hot cocoa. Then one night a girl came in, 13, tired, sharp eyes, and I sat with her while she talked about being the backup mom at home. I didn't give advice. I just listened. She said, "You don't talk like a teacher." I said, "I'm not one. I'm just tired, too." She smiled. That was enough. We built something, slowly. Not a program. Not a miracle. Just a soft place to land. One afternoon, my sister brought her friend. They were hanging out, eating cookies in the back room. The girl looked at me and asked, "Is she your mom?" My sister laughed and said, "No. But she's the only adult who ever really stayed." I didn't say anything. Just kept making tea. Because she was right. I never wanted to be their mother. I just didn't want them to raise themselves the way I had to. Subscribe, hit the like button, and explore more fascinating stories.